everyone, we are back. So we mastered how to make pie crust, a very simple process whereby you cut fat into flour, you layer it, you add some water just to bind it a little bit, and then you chill it. So our dough has been hanging out in the refrigerator for at least an hour. I actually did this last night, so it's been hanging out for 8 to 10 hours, and I took it out about 30 minutes ago because right out of the fridge sometimes your dough can be a little bit too difficult to work with. So what you're going to need to roll out your pie crust is a bottle of wine if you don't have one of these, or if you need a drink to relax a little bit beforehand. These are 2 different rolling pins. I don't care which one you use. This is a straight pin. This is a tapered one. This I use a lot when making croissant or laminated dough so that the butter doesn't get scooched out as you're rolling out your dough. But either way, you use what you like. So when we teach the classes at the school, we have everybody kind of use both and see which one they prefer. I prefer these to the ones that have handles because I can control the pressure that I can apply onto the dough a little bit more with a straight pen. But use what you have. Like, don't go out and get new stuff when you have things that work for you really well. You're going to need a pie tin of some kind. We'll do another episode on galettes, which are pies that are baked flat on a sheet pan rather than in a pan like this. And a pair of scissors. That's pretty much it. You don't need a whole lot more than that. I'm going to take a little bit of flour. Hang on a second. Flour my counter really lightly here. And then take out my dough that's been resting in the refrigerator. So, sorry, I got a little flour in my throat. When we made our dough, we cut it in half. So this is one of the halves of the dough that we made with the 4 cups of flour and the pound of butter. So I'm just gonna very lightly coat this with flour. I don't wanna add a ton of flour to this because I don't wanna dry out the dough. And I'm gonna feel at first if it's soft enough to be able to roll out, and it is, but sometimes, you gotta help it along a little bit. And the trick to getting this flat before you start rolling it out without like having to apply a ton of pressure is just to hit it. Give it a few whacks like this. Okay, this allows me to flatten the dough out without working it too much. So now I'm going to very lightly flour my pin and go over the basics of rolling out dough. This is really important. The first is, don't do this, because this is going to warm up the butter that you want to remain cold so that it can create those nice flaky layers for you in the oven. What you want to do is to start in the center, work your way up, and always stop just shy of the edge. If you roll over the edge, you'll end up with edges that are much thinner than the center of your pie dough, which will do a couple things. One, it'll cause the outside to burn too much because the sides are thinner, and it'll also cause your dough to shrink a little bit, which is what we're trying to avoid. So I start from the center and I work my way up, and I go from the center and work my way down, stopping just shy, and then give the dough a quarter turn. This keeps the dough fairly round. There we go. And it also ensures that your dough is not sticking to your counter, because that can be incredibly frustrating. Sorry, I had a little technical thing I have to take care of there. All right, so we're going to keep doing this. Rolling our dough out and down and quarter turn. 1 and 2 and quarter turn. 1 and 2 and a quarter turn, just like that, until for a 9-inch regular depth pie we get a circle that's about 11 to 12 inches round. So you can get a ruler and check it. You can just put your pie tin over it and guesstimate that you have a couple of inches outside the edges of your tin. I like to just draw a circle. I have this at all times. Like, I just keep this circle around all the time because I bake a lot of pies, and I lay it on top. It's not big enough yet, so that's it. And I keep going. Like so. If the pin is sticking to your dough a little bit, flour the pin rather than adding a ton of flour to your dough. And ideally, you just want a little bit of enough flour underneath the surface here so that your pie crust can glide. If you feel like your pie crust isn't going anywhere as you're rolling or that it's sticking, just lift it up a little bit, grab a little flour, dust it just a little, There's all sorts of gadgets and contraptions you can buy to like help you do this, but you don't need them. You just need to pay attention to your dough. It's telling you what it needs. And then every now and then check it. So let's pretend that my dough isn't behaving and it's tearing a lot. This is happening, because this happens sometimes to me too, like especially if I haven't added enough water or folded it enough times, like, the edges, what am I gonna do? My dough is cracking. Get it as flat as you can and then fold the edges over like this. Don't ever lose hope, okay? But actually, the worse your pie dough is behaving, the flakier it's going to be, because it means you haven't really overworked it, if it's tearing or doing those things. So then I flip it over, whack it a couple times. And then start the process over, just like that. And now your edges are happy, okay? And again, you just wanna apply pressure where your dough needs it the most, being careful not to roll over those edges once you get to one of the edges of your dough. There we are, almost there. I feel it sticking a little bit, so I'm gonna pull in a tiny bit of flour. I have a lot of jars underneath this counter, as you can hear. They're kind of wiggling about a little bit. Okay. All right, so this is how you roll out your pie crust. And I'm going to show you real quickly how to get it into your tin. Here we are. That looks like the right size. You can also pull out this lovely doohickey here. Oh my gosh. That's perfect. So now I'm gonna cut my dough. I really like using scissors rather than any other tool here, because if I use a knife and I start to pull like this, I can melt some of the butter and like have it adhere to the dough. Have you ever made biscuits and seen in a recipe that you should punch out your biscuits and not turn and twist? It's for the same reason. So scissors are gonna expose all those flaky layers that make pie so very wonderful. And all these little extra bits here, you can fold back in when you're rolling out your next dough, or you can just gather them and put them in the refrigerator and use them to cute little hand pies. So you don't want to ball these up. You just kind of want to layer them like this, loosely, pop them in the fridge, and then roll them back out. All right, here we go. Looks pretty good. You can get all like really crazy, neat and tidy with it, but I'm perfectly happy with this right now. Now it's time to get it into the pie tin. Lots of different ways of doing this. You can either fold it into quarters like this and drop it in and open it. If that scares you, you can also do this, where you take the rolling pin and you're going to roll the dough onto the pin like so. Bring the pie tin near you. Pick this up and gently lower it into your pie tin here. Right? The next most important step is to pick your dough up and pop it in here. If you feel like your dough is warming up, I'm going to encourage you to put this in the refrigerator, and then when this is nice and cold, in about 5 minutes, but not so cold that it'll crack if you bend it, join us so I can show you how to crimp a pie crust. Thanks so much. I'll see you in a minute.